Thank you for surviving.
Yes, indeed.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed.
Where's Araba? Hiding? Araba? She's hiding.
You gotta turn on the mic, Asheli.
It's on. No, the light is on. Araba.
I will be back in a few minutes.
Okay. Araba, you want to join me, sister? Shirikiana here? She's coming. She's not here. She's the co-producer too. Here's your mic, sister. What we're going to do is open initially for question and answer. And as I said, we're going to go into the original script to read what was cut out of the story, primarily Cassandra's background story. So unless you want to say something, we go to the question.
I think question is fine.
Okay. So who wants to ask? Nano, you want to go over it for a second until we do question and answer? Okay. So can you give mic to people, sister?
Hello. Thank you both for telling that story. I have a lot of questions, but the one that comes to mind first is when being entrusted to birth something that is so rich with history and culture that many people may not have experienced or encountered before. I guess I'm wondering, like, how do you, as the artist, both from the directorial, editorial, production aspect as well as the acting aspect, how do you properly shoulder that for your community, for the community of those that you're telling the story for? How do you ensure that you do that story justice, essentially? Or what are some things that you would speak on if you were talking to a young director, producer, writer, young actor in a similar position? What would you say? Yeah, thank you.
Okay. My perspective is a perspective of not being an actress, and the story how I ended up in the film has a lot to do with how is it Gasha or Gash Haile?
No, Haile.
I can't do it.
Haile.
Gash Haile is understanding storytelling. So in the film, most of us were not actors or actresses, but we were connected to the story. And the connection is actually the one that I, in Austria, like I was born and raised in Austria. In Austria, I was part of a Black movement. And through this activism and Gasha Haile's interest in Black German experience, that's how I ended up in the film. And I was very insecure if I could take that role because there's hardly, at least at that time, it's a struggle for Black actors, professional actors, to get roles that tell dignified stories. And I thought, I'm not even an actress. Can I do this? Can I, am I not taking somebody's space? But the way it came to me, I never auditioned, of course, I knew about the work of Haile Gerima. In our first Black History Month in Austria, we actually screened Sankofa. But I was able to personate Cassandra because I felt her. like the scenes, I couldn't act because I'm not an actress. I couldn't have acted something I couldn't feel because I'm not an actress. But I could relate to her, like her, and she gave me courage. She really gave me courage. And actually, when I was about to read the script, I was actually scared to read the script because I felt my expectations are too high, they could never be met. And when I read the script and read and saw how Haile actually told the story and connected to the experience of Black people in Germany, I was really, I just couldn't really, it was hard for me to believe it. So I can't really give you the perspective of an actress, but for me as an activist, I could relate to her. And then I thought to myself, like it really came to me, I didn't audition. So what I did is I sent tapes of interviews I did in the context of my activism. And it was in German, obviously, but I remember your reaction then, you said, you were so angry. And this was the first time my anger was actually met with a deep understanding. And what I've experienced throughout discussions that we had, even when I was speaking German, there's an X-ray of a connection, of understanding the anger and the depth of it and the underbelly of it. So yeah, it's really been a journey for me, and Cassandra herself has also enabled me to show an anger that I might have not shown so directly at that time. So it's really been a journey in which our story has been mattered. Our story has been mattered within the context of a very complex historical situation in Ethiopia, but it also shows how those stories are interconnected. But I have to say, last but not least, because I'm not an actress, I might have not made it always easy for you because I had to discuss, I had to really identify with the situation. I couldn't even smoke, like I'm not smoking, so we had to work on the cigarette scene, and I had to say a lot about why can't she keep the baby, because I'm not an actress. But what really was such a wholesome experience is that we mattered. And Haile knew what's at stake. He understood my engagement with the story. He understood the only rule was not to discuss on set. You could discuss before, but not on the set. But it was really an experience that has transformed me in various ways, and and has really inspired also my storytelling as well. So I feel that we were all treated as storytellers in this film. All of us brought our own stories, brought our own layers. And my doubts that I had, I'm not even German, like, do I get it right with the accent? All of that didn't matter, because the heart of the matter was a much deeper one. And that was the soul of it. So that was also the connection we had with the other actors and actresses. They all brought in their multiple layers, and that was actually part of it. It wasn't about being perfect, but it was about bringing in our layers, bringing in our stories. And this is for me also the art of storytelling that Haile's work embodies.
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, I'm not going to go deeply into it because, acting is corrupted. This is where I come from. For me, the problem in Black cinema, I prefer to use community people than actors, because actors come with formula. They are corrupted, and therefore I can't get what I want from them. In fact, they become even very expensive for me because they go around like stars. I don't know human beings in this. I like ground people, community people on the ground. I can't afford to bring any human being that thinks they're star, in the first place, they're psychoneurotics. So that is my fight with actors. I respect actors. Actors are part of the storytellers. I teach about acting, directing a lot. But actors in general disfigure acting and the art and craft of acting because they make it formula, inhuman, and not connect with the actual heart of the character and the relationship it had. They're more concerned sometimes about how they look, etc., more than the character they're playing, the weight of it. And so when I teach, I respect actors. In fact, there was no directors, there were no producers. The first spiritual invocators of story are actors. Actors are supposed to be spiritually the original, storytellers. Before there's a director, before there's a producer, before they were the ones that the community, possesses, or through them possession comes into the community. But the commercialization of white supremacy has completely destroyed black acting included. And so I don't have time for it. And so I go for originals. This is when I started filmmaking. And at UCLA, Bush Mama, etc., I was going for community people, not actors. Initially, I go for the community people who know the story, in fact, sometimes better than me. And they become collaborators because actors are supposed to be, through their voice and aura, they're supposed to be part of this storytelling. And so as an independent filmmaker, I cannot afford mentally deranged people who think they're stars. That's my premise. It would be too expensive. Even when I did Sankofa, some actors from Hollywood so-called people have come all the way to Jamaica to be in my movie. I was not interested. One, they bring baggage of stereotype too. These are things I've studied a lot, so I'm not interested. I'm interested in organic people. Now, when I was looking for all the parts I do, I look for years. It's not a one time. I've gone to Cologne, Frankfurt, everywhere in Germany looking for Cassandra to be played. And then I saw a photograph of a community. I was in Frankfurt and I asked, do you know a sister I'm describing? So, because the actors, I met 2-3 actors, but they were actors. They were auditioning like actors. And I could not work with that. And so I saw a woman in the crowd, like a picture with it's in a magazine Black Germans had in Frankfurt. And it said, who's this woman? I said to them, oh, this is Araba. That's first how I hooked with her, from this picture, very far in the audience. And then she sent me a tape after that. I was not interested because in the tape, she's on television arguing about racism. But I still saw her spirit and her soul in that picture. That still picture did it for me. So I told them, can you help me get hold of her? And so this, when I cast Nunu for Sankofa, I went to a lot of funerals, Jamaican funerals, Ghanaian funerals, Nigerian funerals, even where they are crowded, usually where they come together in Canada, looking for Nunu. But one day I find her in Ghana itself. So, but I look for years. I don't go easily, especially for that kind of part. So basically, to me, Araba was telling the story she knew in most cases than me. Because I'm learning about Black people in Germany in 1976, maybe, starting 76, when I first met this Cameroonian sister that started with. And also the story was based to be shot in America. But there were not, in America, no African film could be made with dignity. Unless it's for commercial, unless it enrich white people, unless the story resonates to the expectation of white people about what Africans are, it can't be done. That's why I went to Europe and concocted a co-production relationship with Germans. And then the issue was shooting it in Germany. How do we adopt it in Germany? But for me, I don't see any difference except the particularity. The Africans in America and Africans in Europe, I don't see much difference what they go through. In America, there is a community. There's a history of resistance of 400 years, something like that. In Germany, it's isolated black people, isolated children, girls and boys, at a very, very innocent age, is where they are lacerated by the what I call a very stonewalled German disregard for one's existence, and there are Ethiopians, there's Ghanaians, there's Nigerians, they go through it, some feel it, some don't feel it, some don't care for it, they create their own cocoon community and exist within themselves. The next question. Took long, didn't it, to answer one question? Can you give mic there? Who's passing the mic?
Sharon, I got it.
Oh, you are? Got it? Cassandra. I didn't see you, Sister Sandra. That's your friend. My friend too.
Thank you. Haile, the way that you created this film as a verite film feels like we're in an extended dream sequence of this brother recreating his memories. And because it was shot in your home village of Gondar, and I remember a long time ago, and forgive me if I'm not remembering this correctly, that one time you were maybe in Germany and some German, a group of German men jumped you and beat you?
Well, they beat a Brazilian guy,
Ah,
not me. I was saved in a train station. It almost happened to me, but I was saved. But
but my question was, relative to the story, how much of this was your own recreation of memory, and your own biography?
well, the generational biography is like Ethiopian students in Europe and America. The student movement, the discourse, the debate, the politics, etc. But like for example, you wouldn't believe it. When I wrote it, it's Oregon that a black Ethiopian man, who was beat in baseball to death in Oregon. That's the seed story where it comes. This is 20, 30 years ago. That's what I was saying. I wrote it for America. And as I'm about to go and they used baseball bat to kill him. And in Germany, as I was about to shoot, few weeks before I start shooting in Ethiopia or Germany, an Ethiopian guy was beat to complete violence in the town I'm about to shoot the film. And when the wall came down in the east-west wall, it was in Mozambique, the wall was coming down. Even within that proximity, a Sudanese man was running away from skinheads, and he ran into a glass door that cut his neck, and he bled with no German coming to his rescue. This is a newspaper my co-producer gave me as we were going around to find money. We were in North Germany, and this Sudanese guy died in Berlin with nobody helping him. He bled to death, and so it was not. It didn't need much in terms of the daily calendar of brutalizing black people kept coming. It doesn't stop. So it fed into the script. But the personal things, I have to also remember what I have told you, I'm sure, somewhere. I have to think it, because I'm getting old too, sister. So let me think it further. But I remember the baseball killing of the Ethiopian. His son was left, by now his son must be even a grown-up man in Oregon. This is in Oregon. And so that is the seed I know that impregnated the whole narrative story. But also, there was other earlier Ethiopian students who came to America who were killed by, racist white Americans. That I had in my own logging of history. Next.
Gondar.
Gondar? Yeah, well, that's the part in me, that part of it is my semi-biography. That Mussolini Mountain is where I used to play with, I used to wait for the sunrise there. So that whole topography of Gorgora, the swimming place, the Mussolini Mountain, it's all my story. The story the Ethiopian abroad and the student movement is a very communal biography. So, but I staged it intentionally to the geography I know, the landscape I know, because I'm always interested in making sure I study, do homework. But in Gondar, it was easy where to put the camera, etc. And most of those people playing the peasant parts were my uncles and my uncle's sons. And so, it didn't cost me much to you can use your own family.
I have a question about the choices that you made.
We can't hear you. We just know you're somewhere.
The choices that you made with sound that was also telling the story. Right? So my question is, I was more focused on that aspect of the film. The visual was fine, but the sound made such a difference to me. I have to ask you what your process is in choosing different sounds that throughout the film.
But sometimes picture itself, memory itself brings sound. It could be rain sound, it could be thunder and lightning, but memory, it's like all the sounds I use in my film are my childhood sound toys, I could say. The audiovisual part of it, every image has it has organic sound or a complementary sound. But sometimes sound is also invented by the imagination. And you invent sound to get the effect you want to get, that the picture is not carrying through. Or accidentally, as you're working, because that's why I like to edit. I like to tell you young people a lot. It's good to edit your own film because you accidentally discover so much. You learn so much about filmmaking, editing, sound, the power of film, whatever we say. But sound for me, sometimes accidentally I discovered. Just today, I was in an area, I found a sound that was under my nose that I didn't notice. And I was very happy that I was revising the present state of the film I'm making, Black Lions. And so for me, it's like I look at sound. For example, sometimes picture is horizontal, sound is vertical graphic. Sometimes the picture becomes also graphically, up and down or vertical, and then sound becomes horizontal. It depends where you're putting on a horizontal. If I put a wind or rain, some kind of horizontal sound, I want vertical pattern to break it, because a sound could put a person to sleep if it's not broken into patterns. So you rhythmically have to go just going, but bip, 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 and then leave it alone, bip, 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 leave it alone. And the audience, like film also is used like that. You know, the film could put you to sleep, but the lighting, the different light that comes and goes, what it does is it percolates your eye, and you cannot sleep. And all this is again for the young filmmakers here who are here. It's very important to me more than cinema. It's very important to study the psychology of light, the psychology of sound, and not to use it mechanically, but it becomes advantageous in the way you work on a film. Once you do the primary picture, the primary sound, now I go for the artistic part of it, the creative part of it. Then I start to shop within my own creative mind, or the imaginative faculty I always talk about, because we all have this imaginative pleasant area where sound, where art or all creative inspirations come into.
Yeah, thank you, Ali. I keep on seeing through your films the same characters or the same themes. Is that on purpose, or is that just by chance?
How do I know? You should ask yourself. I don't know. To me, every film is a ladder I climb, but every film, I don't, to me, I try to grow as a storyteller. I do a lot I work a lot on homework. I believe in working a lot to find the problem, etc. In the way I write stories, I have my own accent, I think. It's imperfect, it's not holistic, it's not integrating yet. But there is this thing from the time I made my early films in Super 8, on the idea of orphaning. The fact that in my first film, I wanted to speak about how America orphans people, how America especially orphans African people, how the tail end or the original origin of Africans is always decapitated and discouraged and demonized and etc. because of the earlier founding culture of making Africans come from nowhere. So they would not tap into their, they would not have to confront their humanity. They come from mothers, fathers, and people and village, etc. And so killing Africa in the minds of African people is very important. So I worked on this. My first film was about how America orphans, including like a person like me who comes from yesterday, not the middle passage, not the distance, but yesterday. Its capacity to orphan you. That's how I found myself in America. So for me, I wanted to just explore that part and made a film on orphaning. So I don't know if this thematically keeps coming back or not, etc. But
it's like Nick George in Ashes, his relationship with his grandmother. You still see those what's the brother's name? His relationship with his mother. The fire that, like in Sankofa, they gather around the fire at night. So it seems like he has these reoccurring images throughout your body of work.
well, I think in terms of like as I grew, when I grow up, where I grew up, fireplace is key. There was no electricity first. When I remember when my father had installed the first bulb on the ceiling, and we waited till it hurt my neck for it to come to see the light. Even our neighbors came because Abba Gerima is having a light. It's going to come to Abba Gerima's house, and we're waiting, and in there came and go. So basically, before the electricity, my life is fireplace. When I teach script writing, that's how I start, with fireplace. That's where stories began. And it's also, it doesn't, what it does is, the storytelling is literally decorated by those cultural nuances. They can be converted into light, they can be converted into props, they can be converted to sound, they can be converted to image. For me, I have a lot of fixation and respect for elderly people. They are, to me, I always felt fraudulent if they're old people and I'm telling a story, because they should be telling the story. They have lived. And so I believe in that. I brought that in America. It did help me learn and study stories and catch stories from those kinds of people. I don't dismiss people. He's a wino, he's at Skid Row, etc. I just know they carry a story. And would I be trusted to be told and put it in my movie, a story?
So I wanted to ask something. Here.
Where?
Here.
Where? Oh, sister, sorry. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask about, I heard some, in the film, there is criticism about the role of politics in our lives and like big ideologies. And I feel it's still today in our current time. And I wanted to hear your thoughts about the relevance of this critique on our day.
On what?
On the current time we're living in.
No, you are going to do that. You are going to do that. I tell stories. I don't like politics. But politics comes in and out because it keeps coming with a gun on us. So it forces itself into our story. But I have no preoccupation in politics. I hate politics. Politics is an art of deception. In whatever origin it comes from. It's a deceptive culture, and we Africans have learned it so good from white people. We are the best tricksters, and you can see the African leaders in Africa trickstering all over us. But to me, story is more important. In the story, if it's woven and if you have a question, the issue I raised that came into the story, I'll be very happy, my sister.
No, I heard in the film there was criticism about the place of politics in our life and how it takes over.
Oh, in the film?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I feel that this criticism is relevant to our day as well. So I
Yeah.
wanted to hear more about
Oh,
the
thank you.
relevance of it today.
Oh, thank you, sister. That's nice. I'm glad it resonates. But for me, it shows you how backward politics is also, because there's nothing new. If it's really, you're right. I'm like seeing the film, and when I shot it, when it was done versus now, Ethiopia first is like America first. So everywhere where politics is still around, it resonates. In the film, I'm more interested about, as young Ethiopians who were in the left-wing camp of politics, how much we brutalized each other by being dogmatic, by being desperate about revolution, by being desperate about change. Because a desperate generation cannot make change. A desperate generation is fascist by nature because it wants the change in its dictation. It's not interested in the time and place and the application of struggle within those considerations. So I come from a desperate generation. I bailed out quickly, but I was part of the student movement. Those student movements, when I went to shoot in Cologne, that's where I shot in a room where they used to meet, the Ethiopian students in Cologne. What I had in mind is the International Student Association at UCLA, where I thought I would shoot the film there. But when I went to Cologne, I find the same thing. And the other thing is also, that we have also lost our humanity because of the desperate situation of our countries, the poverty, the real issues could drive you desperate. And that desperate, you should not be trusted to be the messenger of revolution, in my view. And I'm not talking about other revolutions in the past, China, Russian, American Revolution. They've gone their own. Now I think I'm learning we did not know our country. We did not know Ethiopia. We were educated by a miseducating factory and thought we learned and wanted to duplicate everything we saw here and there. And that backfired, in my view. Even the ones, the bad people are grotesque creations of Eurocentric nightmare. And so these are the political things that interest me. And they will be in my film, but not to advance the politics. My thing is always young people. If they go right, the young people in their faces is the promise of the future. It doesn't also guarantee you. And I always told my Howard kids, just because they're the future, it doesn't mean they will do right. But would they humble themselves in that historical timeline of the resistance history of Black people from Africa to here, and then at the foot of that struggle, respectfully make their history, invent their history, instead of imitate other things that have happened. That's what happened to my generation. We became imitators, not innovators. We were imitating. We saw, those are my uncles. They were lecturing them about Mao Zedong. They didn't know who Marx was, but these peasants were being subjected to a guy who just read a page of somebody's page. Because I'm not sure we Ethiopians also really knew the cultural origin of Marxism. I'm not sure. Because to me, when I read Russian revolutionaries, they come from the literature, music, and art of their European origin. We take it at the tip end of it, where revolution is very attractive. So we take the revolutionary period only, the Bolshevik, but we don't know where they came from, what they were reading, as the Tsar was terrorizing them and hanging them. What were they reading? The Ethiopians I know don't listen to even music. The Ethiopians I know have no room for poetry, except if it says something down with Haile Selassie, which is not poetry, or down the Dirk, or down Abiy. It's not poetry. And so there are these things that I feel, are very important for Africans who believe in change. I believe in change. Otherwise, I'll be fascist, because our people are, poverty is killing them, disease is killing them. Very important war in Africa. Poverty is war, disease is war is war, killing each other. For which white man should own the diamond? Not even my wife should wear the diamond. We don't kill for each other. We kill on behalf of some white boy in Europe. We're crazy people. So I want to make more film about that, to say, who are you killing who for? I want to say that to the Sudanese murderers, the Congo murderers who kill our dreams. I want to say to them, who are you dying for? For your daughter, your family, your people. It's not, I don't know any war in Africa that is not on behalf of somebody. From Liberia to Congo, to Sudan, cotton, oil, everything is under the subtext. Now you made me talk politics. There's somebody in the middle there.
Yeah.
I am curious about the parable about the serpent. Some just wondering where that came from. Is that from Gondar or is that your own creation? And why did you choose that to be the ending of the movie? Because, you know.
Well, Ethiopians before they became Christians, they had dragon as their symbol of God. Once they killed that dragon, they've been in trouble. So the children of the dragon is what I'm waiting for personally.
Wow.
Yeah, sister, not serpent.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, so,
I don't want to be a descendant of
but
serpents.
what is your source? I'm sorry.
Huh?
What's the source for that story? That before they became Christians, the dragon was.
Well, what, if you, read more, sister. Read the Ethiopian literature. It's all over. The dragon is always there. In fact, all our archangels kill dragons first for us to love them. They're always putting spear. But what we don't know is it's pre-Christian. It was our. Have you seen Adwa, the film I made?
Yeah.
In the
long time
beginning,
ago, yes.
In the beginning, the same thing. The dragon story. Because to me, I think I'm not anti-religion of anybody. Please don't beat me, don't kill me because I have a film to finish. But I do believe organized religions, whether it's Islam or Christianity, has destabilized Africa. And it's very hard for us, if we believe in religion, to confront that situation. For me, Ethiopia is peppered with this dragon origin everywhere. In early writings, scriptures, you find the dragon always. And when I say that, I could even say Eritrean if I don't get beat up. Eritreans do have also this origin because we were all ones at one point until we politically fractured into North and South and East and West, which is good. And South Sudan is going back to North Sudan soon. They're trying to, what am I saying? They're trying to sew back, you separate and you sew it back. A generation will come and say, why are we separated? And Africa, some people are trying to sew back Africa from European balkanization, okay? And then we come with big scissors to divide Africa. And then there will be children who will not inherit our feud, who will come and sew it back. And where do the others go? I don't know. Why you make me talk about this, a very wild discussion bordering on, okay.
Gashali, my question is a little stupid, but from the movie, in the movie, if the spy didn't run back fearfully, instead, if he walked facing the racist young boys, wouldn't he save his life?
He did face them, he wrestled them.
No, when he looked at them instead of getting terrified.
I don't know,
walk
brother.
as he was walking.
I don't know. The script I wrote, it's like me. He runs. I would run too. It depends on how your antenna rises up when you are in trouble.
Yes.
And then you make decisions. It could be fatal. But for me, it tells what I'm interested.
Okay, Gashali, on Subhat Gabriel Xavier's book, I read that when he was in France, there were youngsters came just trying to look for some troubles, and he was coming. Instead of running, he just walked to talk to them, and they talked to him. And if anybody give you a hard time, we'll take care of you, we'll protect you. And he said, "Okay, thank you," and he left. So
Well, I don't know what kind of, maybe they were French gay men. I'm joking. I am not going to say. No, I'm sorry. Because it's not applicable. In Paris, I know in Paris, people in Belgium and in France, people who got killed also. It depends on the circumstances. I think he's gutsy to face them, but what kind of white people did he face? I know there are certain areas I will not trust to even walk around. When I was in Chicago, there were areas I wouldn't go. Okay, personally. So for me, I don't think, you facing them, Obama, thinks he can disarm racist white people by talking to them. To date, I have not seen him convinced the crackers that push Donald Trump every day, I don't see him face them. He's been telling Howard kids and everybody, you disarm him, by listening to them. For me, somebody that thinks I should not deserve to live is not somebody I want to talk to. I don't want to convince them because one, they don't have my license to give me life. Two, I think it's dangerous to say somebody hates you, but you want to convince them they should not hate you. That to me is not a good dialogue. I would never do it. I prefer to fight than even try to talk like that with white people, that race who hate a black person. I don't know, we're getting all over the place. Go ahead, my brother. Here. Here.
I had two questions. I'll step over to the side. So I had two questions. My first question is, first, the movie was absolutely phenomenal. There were so many small things I liked that attracted my attention in general. And I think we all can agree to that. But my question was, what was your personal take and potential relationship with the Dirk, I believe, the person who helped or conspired against Haile Selassie? Did I say this? I'm sorry. I was getting this question from my fiance. What was it?
No, I was asking personal experience with the Dirk.
Personal experience, I'm sorry. That was my first question.
They're scary fascists. They're scary. I went and saw them in '74 when I wanted to do a film in Ethiopia. I shot my film and I went to the Dirk's office to meet them eye to eye to say, I want to film you. I want to know what kind of government you are. And they scared the hell out of me. They were very fascist from the time they come. I don't go for it. It's Ethiopians who embrace fascists. We create fascists. And the Dirk, to me, is our creation. So is the second one. So is the third one. Every dictator in Africa is our creation. Our circumstances, when we're desperate, we embrace the wrong people. We hug them. We tell them, oh, we're for you. And that's why I think desperation doesn't make you see right. So for me, governments I don't like by nature, personally. The closest I like was Sankara's government, Sankara. Even him, my wife and me interviewed him, etc., talked to him. But when he invited filmmakers to dinner at his palace, I never went. Because I don't want to be near power. I want to remain a filmmaker who watches everything. So, I don't know if that answers, brother.
Thank you. I did have a second question. Would it be possible in the future we could see potential? So I just saw the Gladiator movie. I don't know if anyone saw that. And I saw how they portrayed Macronus. And it made me think about something that you said earlier today about how it's very difficult, almost impossible for us to see integrity in certain African American historical figures that did amazing things. And one of the things I was wondering is in the future, could we possibly see films from you showcasing some?
Well, no, I don't like amazing people. I don't like to make stories about. I want regular black people, regular people, amazing people. When you start to go that road, you're going to do Black Tarzan. You're going to do black this, the version of white people essentially. Okay, when you look for mythology, you end up being entrapped into white supremacist paradigm to begin with. You can't get out of it because it believes in mystifying. The cowboy American, that comes to the world with 6 bullets but has thousands of them. He doesn't run out, rearranges the world and goes. That is not culture. For me, There are human beings that are trying to do something in ordinary, regular way. That fascinates me. But amazing black people first is a lie. They never existed. It's just we want to have our own amazing because white people keep surrounding us with amazing, so many amazing white people. So the colonized mind of ourselves, we want to create in the image of white people because that's life for us. Someday we'll be like them, we'll be as grotesque, powerful as them. It's the pitfalls of black nationalism. Read Fanon, read Du Bois, you'd get what I'm saying. They're better spokespersons than I. For me, the world should be, the story should be about human beings. And imperfect, not perfect, imperfect human beings. Perfect human beings never existed until Hollywood came. There's no perfect art in the world until white people showed up in the art world. All art is imperfect if it's a human manufacture. And I know this is not very popular to a population that is captivated by Hollywood colonial instrument. But they're in charge of our fashion, they're in charge of our hairdo, our desires are infected. We don't even have autonomous desire. Our sensory organs, left and right, is white supremacy's captured or captivated by. That's why too many black folks don't have no relationship with each other but by themselves twirling. Because of movies and culture and the salad bar of what we eat. Food is not what makes you, it's what you eat. In the cultural salad bar of white supremacy has brought black people to where we are. So for me, I'm not interested in mythical black heroes. I want human beings, regular human beings, because every black kid should say, I too, I stutter, but I can also do what she just did. A black kid who says, I stutter, I look like this, but I too can also do history. History makers don't come by spectacle people, by special amazing people. No, history is made by ordinary people. The dragon sister wants to ask questions. Don't ask me about the dragon again. By the way, about the dragon, I want to tell you this. The priest who plays the part, for example, the monologue you see Amber was saying, the children of the dragon, I wanted that Ethiopian priest to say it. But he said, like my father told me this, for example, my father was a priest too. He would not tell the dragon story was prohibited to be spoken about, although all Ethiopian Stohado priests study the dragon story to show where we come from. They're told to forget it once they become priests. And then if they tell the regular people, they'll be excommunicated. As my father told me. The guy says, I will not utter it in the film. That's why I give it to the actor, Amber. Otherwise, the priest was supposed to say it. But the priest said, I'll be excommunicated by the Pope, by the bishop. Just to add a little bit, in case that's where you're going.
Yeah, no. My question is for Araba.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Freedom come.
You said, you have been asking a lot of questions, and one of the questions you asked was why she was not able to keep the child, right? So what answer did you get, or what made you settle with the story as it is presented?
I have to really go back. I think maybe it also ties back to the comment. I think it was a joint comment that you had, maybe, or question. Maybe there was also yearning for, I don't know if perfection, but something, I couldn't take the pain, you know, and I think we had a conversation, I think, about that, and I think you might have told me that life is more complicated or something, the complexity of things. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it opened something up in me, as in there's a broader, way to look at it. And just in general, growing up in, also being part of the Black movement in Austria, and then moving to the States and also being at Howard in the Black space, it also broadened my perspective, because I feel in this glaringly white spaces, we always had our backs behind the wall, no, not behind the wall, against the wall, against the wall. And it was a space in which we had to prove our humanity all the time. And there was no space for brokenness in a way. So things had to be more polished. And I was afraid of vulnerability as well. You know, there were so many things I was scared of, and I wanted it to be happier. You know, I couldn't stand this pain. Why can't, the pain of her not keeping a baby. So while I'm answering the question, I'm kind of still sitting in it, it's still cooking, so it's very raw what I'm giving you. I thank you for the question, but it literally really broadened my horizon, the conversation. And it was also just being able to be mattered and heard in my concerns was already very important in me processing it. You know, it wasn't dismissed. It was, there was an understanding where it's coming from as well. So that's what I can bring at this moment.
It's also, when we met, she was very, a chair, we need a chair here. When we met, she was concerned about the acting. I'm not an actor. I said to her, I'm not looking for an actress. You are the person who's going to do it. And we demystified acting by just empowering her to say, you're going to do it. And so, can you bring no, stay there. She will sit here. So let's do the script of because it's so important for me, for us to see, because it's a film. Someday it will be made into a film, in my view. And the other thing is about the acting part. I have done film with African Americans who are not actors. While I was a film student, I made a film in Ethiopia in 1974 with peasants, literally peasants. But you have to learn how to communicate and demystify the idea of acting to people, to empower them to say, you are the person who's going to tell the story, and you have it. For example, I have to explain to them, my uncles didn't even know film, they don't even know photograph. I have to show them what we're doing step by step. And so, like the mother in Teza, she doesn't read. The part was read for her. I had assigned, I could get, Addis Ababa is full of, actresses, but contaminated, corrupted. We did audition in Addis, I didn't want any of it. But her, for example, and the sister who played Azanu, these are organic people, And I told them, trust me, I wouldn't have chosen you if I knew you wouldn't be carried. You have it. I see the latitude in them. And I say, you have it. And the thing about it is, once they realize they're really doing it, you can't even stop them.
Yes.
Because the story is very close to them. So, for example, Tataka, I had somebody employed for her to read the script, and she had logical question, but why would she do that before she does this? When I shot in 1974, the peasants, taking the oxbow off the cattle, my uncle said to me, it's until noon now, it is noon now, I will not take it off. You don't do that, that's omen, bad omen. You learn, you forget, you travel, you learn. And you say, okay, you stop the movie. You don't say, film is more important, forget your tradition. We learned, and accommodated and used it in the film too. So now, what we're gonna do is, Nanu is gonna read, Nanu Gerima is gonna read the scenes that were taken out of the film that I think is very, very important, especially for young filmmakers, storytellers, because for me, this film's imperfection is why this missing part. Because it does not put in context. You saw Azanu's life was put in context. You know why she was an outsider in the middle of the village. She was Cassandra. In Germany, Cassandra. In Ethiopia, Cassandra, but Azanu is Cassandra. Because there's always these outsiders. Within even our own community, we make outsiders. And so the Cassandra part is very important, especially for script writers, people who are interested in filmmaking. This is very important to to listen and see, and then we'll have a discussion, more concentrating with the Araba will have her own input in it because she's always regretted why we didn't have it, why we didn't shoot it. Go ahead, when you're ready. Hmm? Yeah, I will. Once you get to the village, you stop. But once the Cassandra story, the police take the father, we stop. Let's see if you can hear. The sound was low in the film, I thought. Was it low? No? Okay, sorry. I was gonna kill somebody. Go ahead.
Along with the old priest, Priest Teklu blesses the water, placed in front of them in a large container. Quickly they proceed to scoop the water and smash Angaibad with it. Old priest, let go of our son Lucifer, and part from him, in the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, and part from him. Angaibad squints his face under the downpour of what appears to be scratch all that. Okay, start over. Interior Cologne small playhouse night. A small but crowded audience stares at a small stage. Gabby and Tesfaye are seated in front of the auditorium. On the stage, lit by spotlight, is Cassandra. When she was barely speaking as a child in school, anxious to learn and simply play, like all the other children, a teacher pointed her finger at her little body and said to her, "You are not German. Where are you from?" The spotlight fades out on Cassandra. Slowly the light on the middle of the stage comes up on a little young girl. Cassandra continued. She was being initiated on her road of brutal confusion. All the children stared at her, echoing the teacher's challenge. The little girl trembled, incarcerated by their stares, their eyes. She even felt she was caught stealing. The little girl is singing and playing hopscotch and running around the circle of the light. The light continues to expand its circular formation. Underneath this action, we hear the voice of Cassandra. Cassandra voiceover. The day the little girl celebrated her 8th year of life on this earth, she hugged and kissed Johnston, her little boyfriend. He was repulsed. He shoved her under the dining room table and, wiping the kiss off his face, told her she wasn't a German. "You are different from the other girls," he shouted. Crushed, she remained under the table, crying uncontrollably. Poison overtook her body. Suddenly, a number of young girls and boys come running onto the stage, surrounding the little girl. The light fades out on the stage. Briefly, they pull and toss the little girl amongst themselves. The light comes up on Cassandra. Though she was still a little girl and wanted to be like other children and play, playing itself became a burden to her, especially when they had to play the game of black man. But she does not consider herself to be black and is forever typecast in this role. Cassandra turns her face towards the stage. In the dark-filled stage, the young girl with a flashlight in her hands is searching for the children who are hiding. Young girl, who is afraid of the black man? Who is afraid of the black man? If he comes, Who's afraid of the black man? The children. No one, no one. I'm not afraid. We're not afraid. I'm not afraid if the black man comes. Throwing a flashlight on her face, young girl. If the black man comes, he's going to swallow you, eat you up and swallow you. Who's afraid of the black man coming? The children shivering in chorus. Children. We're not afraid. We're not afraid if the black man comes. She places a flashlight on her face when she is talking and on the children when they talk. Young girl. I see you. You better hide. The black man is coming. When he comes, he's going to eat you and chew you up, then gulp and swallow you. Who's afraid of the black man if he comes? The young girl goes all over the stage searching over the children with her flashlight. After a while, her flashlight is turned off. The spotlight comes up on Cassandra. Cassandra. From childhood, fearful of eyes that stared at her. Everywhere she turns, eyes staring at her. When she sleeps, people's eyes haunt her. At school playgrounds, eyes staring at her. Why is everyone looking at me, staring at me? She began to touch her hair, her nose, her lips. Why am I different? She begins to ask herself. Why don't I have my sister's hair, my brother's nose, my mother's and father's lips? After all, I am their child. How come? How come my hair is not straight? All these questions ravaged her tender soul. By the time she became 11, she began to isolate herself from everything children do. She hides now and watches the children play games. When one day, the light quickly fades out as Cassandra is suddenly from the entrance. A light quickly fades out on Cassandra. Suddenly from the entrance, a young, terrified boy bursts out and runs through the aisle towards the stage, screaming at the top of his voice. Boy. The black man is coming. Honestly, I saw him. He's coming. The light on the stage comes up. The boys and the girls, under intense commotion, all freeze where they are standing and proceed to tremble. The young boy makes it to the stage. Boy, pointing towards the entrance of the theater. For real, honestly, the black man is coming. Look, he's coming. The audience turns toward the entrance door. Gabby. I too used to play it when I was a kid. Gabby leans on Testify and cries uncontrollably. The spotlight comes on at the entrance of the theater. A well-dressed Mbaba playing the part of the black father, carrying a briefcase. He enters the auditorium. The little girl, emotionally overwhelmed, stands trembling, looking out at the black father. The black father marches straight through the aisle and towards the stage. The rest of the young girls and boys screaming at the top of their lungs, "The black man is here!" And they scatter throughout the stage. The little girl is trembling, staring at the black father that is approaching her. The children. The black man is here for real, honestly. Oh, he's gonna eat her. Run! Escape, you are in trouble, he's gonna eat you. The black father gets up on the stage and whispers to the girl. Black father. Little girl, don't be afraid. I won't eat you. The little girl, in fear, continues to tremble out of her wits. Slowly she lifts her head and steals a glance at him. The black father continued. Pretty girl, is your family home? Don't be afraid. Somewhere in Germany, I have a pretty little girl like you. I'm just looking for her. She might even be you, I don't know. I have her mother's photo with me. So you want me to show you? Little girl. My father is not home, but my mother is. Black father. Take me to her. Precious, take me to her. Don't be afraid. I won't hurt you. The black father affectionately grabs little girl's hand. Suddenly we hear the shouting voice of a woman from the direction of the crowded auditorium, age 30 to 40. The spotlight comes up on the audience, scanning the audience under a searchlight. In the middle of the seated audience, a woman stands up. The searchlight rests on top of her head. Mother, come here, immediately, you godforsaken child. Didn't I tell you not to talk to strangers? Come here, now. The little girl snatches her hand away from the black father and runs away. The woman, followed by a spotlight, proceeds toward the aisle, and on her way toward the stage, she cries to the little girl. Mother continued, "You'll always be evil." She slaps her. I told you not to talk to strangers. You have no hope. It doesn't matter what we do for you. The little girl, holding her slapped face, runs away. The mother hurriedly approaches the black father. Mother continued. What do you want? Easily wandering into our community, terrifying our children. If you don't leave immediately, I'm going to call the police on you. Black father. Excuse me, madam. I'm not here to create troubles for you. I happen to be looking for my child. Fumbling in his briefcase, black father continued. I have here with me the photograph of the mother of my child. Mother. You must be out of your mind. Get, shoo. Don't force me to call the police on you. Disappear. In the middle of the audience, Gabby uncontrollably cries. Black father, please, madam, give me a chance to explain to you why I'm here. I have photograph documentation. I saw a little girl. I'm sure the same age of my child I had with this German woman, a woman I met in the city of Munich. He continues to fumble in his suitcase and pulls the photograph out, approaches the mother. The mother, frightened, backs away from him. Mother, get away from me. Get away from me. Police, police. Suddenly, a number of policemen converge onto the stage and surround the black father. Black father, I have not committed a crime. I happen to be looking for my daughter. The woman just screams. You people are making a mistake. I am an honorable man. The girl, the young girl, standing from what looks like a second-story building window, watches the police brutally overtake the black father and drag him off stage through the aisles. In the scuffle, his hat that is left on the stage becomes her focus. Gabby, sitting sandwiched between Araba and Teza, continues to sob. The little girl descends and returns to the empty stage, and she grabs his hat. Suddenly again we overhear her mother's voice screaming at the top of her lungs. Open the door, you evil girl. You are the cause of all this, creating all this kind of scandal for all the neighborhood to laugh at. I say open, I'm gonna break this door down and get you. Open up. The stage lights are all out except for the spotlight on the little girl. Another spotlight fades up on Cassandra. Cassandra. The cloud of childhood innocence for the rest of her life exiled itself. Inside the bathroom she remains. The little girl standing in front of the mirror grew to be 1,000 years old. From here, she continues to ask, was he my father? Could he be my father? Who am I then? Where do I come from? Her innocence is forever removed from her. From then on, when her literal age became 12, 13, 14, it came and went, made no difference in her life. Without knowing it, stuck in one place, she became 17, 18, 19, 20. Made no difference. She went in and out of psychiatric treatment. You suffer mentally, a doctor diagnosed. Because you want to be white. You want to be German. All kinds of prescriptions by so-called doctors, family, and friends. She became a playground for all kinds of snake oil doctors, psychiatric doctors, since everyone in Germany seemed to agree on the cause of her misery. In time, she began to believe it, concurring with the chorus of voices from these pundits. Slowly, the spotlight fades out on Cassandra. The young girl, enveloped by a circular spotlight, began to go around the lines, retracing the lines of the light as the circle of light continues to narrow and shrink into total darkness. Briefly, it becomes silent, and then the audience applauds. The light comes back on, the stage, and Cassandra and the little girl steps forward and bows. Cassandra accidentally spots her adopted family, hurriedly leaving the auditorium. Araba, Gabby, and Teza, in a state of ecstatic joy, approach the stage.
Read it good. I hope she'll make it into a movie herself.
Yes.
Because to me, it's a story that I felt should be told. Because one, it's not, there's more to it because Cassandra is actually is a product of an African father from a Munich nightclub and a German woman. And when he was deported, she thought he abandoned her. And she goes to her town. And then in her town, they ostracized her, including the family, saying, no, you have to go to another town. You cannot embarrass us like this. And her own brother, the woman that slaps the little Cassandra, is the actual wife of her uncle. She's taken by that family. And basically, in that family is this ongoing terror because the mother committed suicide, leaving her child into this situation. And then these people are trying to raise her, but they cannot face her daily confrontation with the identity and the overall Germany. And so basically, that's a story I felt would have put the multi-dimensional aspect of Cassandra. And I've always regretted for not shooting it. And I'll let you take it from there.
I mean, first of all, I just wanted to thank you, Nanu. I don't know where you are. I missed a hug, so I'm also gonna hug. I'm just so I'm so moved, and it's also I just remember when I don't remember when me and Njideka came to DC, and you were a child at that time, Nanu, and the story of Teza has been around for so long, and I feel that you also grew with the story so much. And I actually would love to hear from you, but I don't know where to start asking, because there's so much I would like to ask you, but how reading and how reading Cassandra's parts was for you, like what kind of experience was it for you? And I know this is quite a clumsy question because it's still very raw, but I would just love to hear from you your process in connecting and reading it out, and connecting with it.
Yeah. Can you give her a mic, somebody? Where's the mic go?
For one,
We can't hear you.
Haile writes women very well. So not just Cassandra, but in general, even without reading it, whenever I just hear the dialogue, it's crazy hearing it as a kid, not understanding it, but feeling the emotion behind it, understanding it from those terms.
Can you repeat that for me?
It was so cool being a child, or as far as the process or I remember hearing him edit it as a kid, hearing him go over the dialogue, hearing the auditions, all that jazz, and only catching the emotion because I was a child, but understanding it, and then on an emotional basis, and then as I got older, watching it over and over and over again, it keeps unraveling. But it's not just Teza, it's literally all of them. So to answer your question, it feels like he put his word, not his words, but I know these people so well because he raised me off these people, these characters. And these are characters that he very well carved out of himself. I know he doesn't, he maybe can't identify with Cassandra's exact creation, her molding. Or no, not the creation, but he can identify with her molding, if that makes sense. I just like how he doesn't forget the humanity, to his point earlier, how imperfect we are. Because that's what makes Cassandra perfect, that's what makes the Trauma's Dorothy perfect. That's what makes I forget her name here, but my brother's newfound flame. Yeah, she's so perfect because she's so like, it's crazy a man wrote it. That's all I can think every time I read shit, hear shit, watch it. I'm like, yeah.
Thank you.
Go ahead, brother.
I've been sitting on this question long because it's a quote by Frantz Fanon in Black Skin, White Mask. What are we gonna do when all of Africa's people are free and the next group of people are oppressed? The way you said the movie impacted you to embrace your own humanity and the way you told stories. What was the difference in that and the way you embrace your essence beyond name, geography, and religion, things that we didn't choose fully? But what were ways you embraced it after the movie and the experience? And for me, hearing even snippets of parts I could have won in the script, but what are ways that like it made you embrace your identity beyond just your connection to the present times, if that makes sense?
Okay. Yeah, I got it. Thank you. To answer your question, it was really that basic. I mean, for me, the fact that in this story, this very complex story, in which I also find my father's generation, and my father coming from Ghana and being part of a generation of African intellectuals moving to Europe to study. But to connect the story of the African diaspora and those stories and show how they're interconnected, for me, there was a depth in just basically that our stories matter to be told. And that is something that has been instilled in me through working, being part of also as a storyteller, because I became a storyteller. Haile just also explained how I didn't know if I could even do it when I came, like my first scene. The first scene was the scene where Gabi and Tesfaye break down that they're expecting a child. That was the first scene. But to be instilled with, I knew Haile's work, and just to know that he believes I can do it also made me grow to tell the story. And it has impacted me in a way that there's no going back. It transforms you when you grow into shoes that you feel are too big, at the start of things. And that's, it was literally that basic. And as part of also a Black movement in Austria, like in the 90s, we protested against police violence. And I mean, it's a very classic story that we were surveilled and so on. So there was a lot of recovering that I didn't even know I had to do, like the impact of surveillance on you. And I always felt I was the fortunate one because I was not imprisoned, But there's ways in which you need to recover as a storyteller. So it was really a very deep healing, a very deep recovering. And it's like seeds that are dropped, so they grow eventually. So it's not a linear thing where I can say 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a deep, it's a deeper process, and it's still growing as I'm talking. And having being instilled by both also Shrikiana Gerima and Haile Gerima, that's always been encouraged, like your story matters, the way you speak matters, the way you process things, you know. It's something that's very, very impactful in ways that are bigger than I can just wrap in words. You know, I can't just clothe it in words because it's still ongoing. Yeah.
That's very human of you to say that you're still, like, as a storyteller, figuring out those ways to recover and get, like, as I'm beginning to embrace more of that emotional excavation out of it too. Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Can you pass the mic to the sister? Uh-oh, mic is broken.
Yes, I want to thank you. Watching this film took me back home, but a home that I never been in, because was for me my parents' stories, and I even felt. I felt my mother. I felt her like when she was young. And I want to thank you for that.
Thank you, my sister. Thank you, sister. Thank you. Stay strong.
I want to know, there was a scene that I really never heard before in the movie, but I always want to ask, and it was asked in this movie, at the party, when your character said, why are there always with white women, right? And, you know, I really appreciated that because you get a lot of that today, and the boldness of the character in her own humanity to say, what about me in this space? You know, am I invisible? You know, and the fact that she had to explain her own humanity to a black man, right? Why don't you see me in this space? You know, and then for her to say, because of her experience and her mother dying, for her to say, oh, y'all celebrated having this child. What do you know about raising a child? Her own emotion and experience of the pain of not, you really brought that to light, because that's another good question, you know, in terms of, are y'all even thinking what it means to bring a biracial child into this space? And then the connectedness of him, the child growing up, and the mother saying, oh, I don't know what to do with this black kid, you know, I can't control him. You know, his mother, as he has grown up. And that also speaks to the importance of having a male person, a male figure in that space when you, the father especially, in that space. And the fact that why y'all making babies and then you leave them? You know, thank you, Haile. I mean, those are like really issues that should come to your, or what people, well, at least I think about that. You know, it was good to see that, and it was good to have people ask that particular question. You know, what is the impact of having this child, and the child will be angry, right? And how does that anger affect society? Because it will give cause for the racism to say, well, look at this black kid. You know, this is why they have no control, no behavior, let's lock them up. You know, so, yeah, that's I really like how you portray that and ask those questions as a non-actress. Because I feel that deep down inside, you already had that feeling about that. You know, so I felt the reality, I felt the truism of that, in that scene.
for me, the film also not just reminded me of my mother, but of my aunts and a lot of women in my family. And I feel like, yes, the film was about the main character, but for me, it was about the mothers around him and the experience of African mothers bringing life into the world and also watching their children being taken from them. My question, I know at the end you said the film was dedicated to your mother, so I wanted to know about your mother and if any of the characters are her or remind you of her. Yeah, that's my question.
Well, my mother also, she passed at the time I'm trying to do this film. And yes, of course, mothers, the eternal devotion to their children. My mother had all those elements. I mean, where do you get it? You tap from your sisters and your mother, grandmothers, and etc. So, for me, just to make one thing, so especially the young filmmakers, I do not calculate characters essentially on gender, by the way. I know this will be very unpopular to people, especially people who push feminism as a principal idea. For me, characters are, for me, genderless. Essentially, work on the characters and make them formidable human beings before you put the costume on them or the decorative aspect of them. You have to essentially work. So fundamentally, if it's about shaming or if it's about betrayal, if it's about devotion. So for me, I don't look at it from gender. There's a lot of people, because most of my films about women, and people do not know if I succeed to impress you in the way I capture characters, it is because I don't go on gender basis. In this dichotomized world, I separate myself. For me, the character is more important than tapping into gender divisions of, and a lot of times it's very unpopular. For me, all my characters could be about a man or could be about a woman. And the most important thing I pay attention to is building the character and motivating their actions. And this is why I had this scene read for you guys, because Cassandra is left lopsided, incomplete. And so I think if you achieve to write about a character, that becomes very particular. And to me, gender is sometimes very elusive. It becomes a chorus. It becomes a feel-good venture when you go for gender. Either, supremacizing men is another game that I think I avoid. For me, my characters are very important. And their objective, what they want in life, this is where I spend more of my time. And I do not, I guess it's because I'm anti-fad. When the women's is in, I don't do women movie. The police brutality film, we made it when we were students. Not because it's fashion, it was part of the reality. So You know, when you make something fashion, you deaden the sensitivity of the nerve endings of the population you want to hear your story. Even the chorus, the people you go crazy for, black people. I like a lot of my students, I say, spare black people of you considering you are going to make a film for their salvation. That's so egotistical for me. I say, black people will do fine without you, is what I tell my students. Don't be too obsessed about, for the race, I'm gonna do this. Don't tell a goddamn story. That's all there is to it. I remember one time, Kathy Collins is one filmmaker I respect so much because, you know, you can't pigeonhole her. She's a very liberated woman. One time we were in Newark Film Festival, and these people I knew in London, friends of mine, came and asked me, they worship Kathy Collins. At that time, she's one of the only woman filmmaker, and they say, Haile, please introduce us. But I know Kathy Collins don't buy no bullshit. If you try to say some crazy thing, she would just tear you in pieces and walk away. She don't go for fashion, fad, nothing. Nobody she spares. And so I introduced them and I turned my back because the British young filmmakers at that time were like politically, like their fluency, articulation about things that don't exist, the cinema and vertical nature of the graphic imagery, it's a big, they were going through changes. And so I turned my face away, they're facing her, and I know her back is behind me, and the guy said to her, I make a gay cinema. He said, I want to make a gay cinema. And she said, tell a fucking story. You get what I'm saying? Just tell a story. Don't label it quickly. In other words, she's saying, tell a human story. Because when you say you are a black storyteller, you are Columbus who discovered America, or Columbus who discovered black stories or black people. And it's better to humble oneself and say, I want to tell a story. Thank you for this vocabulary of my community that gives me the idea. So the pretentious aspect, the political declaration, for me has no home. For me, make a human story, and your agenda will be fulfilled. If you have, I'm politically, I'm not stupid, I'm aware. But I don't impose my politics on my story. I would be killing my story. Politically, I read, I study, but that's for me. When I tell a story, I want to be a storyteller and develop that part of it. In fact, that is my struggle, is to be a better filmmaker from every film I make. Okay, so I don't know if this gets to the heart of it, but I know my grandmother is very important in my life as a storyteller, but so is my father, a playwright. When I was being brainwashed about Shakespeare, my father under my nose wrote epic plays better than Shakespeare. And yet I worshipped Shakespeare, Greek tragedy, Euripides, etc. because I went to modern school and my father didn't go. I'm more advanced than him, he's backward. That's how we refer to our people. Learned people, even Ethiopians, we call them muhalakar, meaning backwards. So I'm trying to liberate myself from this pretentious catalog or category people always say. Category hate. You should hate category. Artists should never accept category. I could show you film class, I could teach you how many great filmmakers were ruined when they become what the critics said they are. Many great filmmakers I admire were ruined when they believed the critics' idea of what kind of filmmaker they are. You can never predict me. Never. I used to tell my classmates at UCLA, I would make a film, but I don't want the audience to be in front of me. I don't want them to predict me. They should be completely uncertain where I'm going with this thing. That I have proved to some extent. But you could never predict my logic. My narrative logic is unpredictable. In fact, one sister said one time, it's just unrelenting. How do you tell this kind of story? I'll tell you, that's the best feedback I ever got. My brain is like that. And I shoot it, but if I brought political logic, sociological logic, philosophical logic, because I read books, my story would be killed. Art is always killed by politics to begin with. So why have a political, if I want to march, I'll march. If I want to be Black Lives Matter, I'll do. But I will never put my art, my craft, my skill, my gift at the mercy of any politics. Even the ones I admire. When they ask me to make a film, I say, when I make a film about you, you're going to be in trouble because I'm going to look at your contradictions. And that's how the Wilmington 10 was made. When we made the Wilmington 10, I said, I don't want to do a film to prove you guys innocent. No. That should be 60 Minutes in American television. I want to know where you come from. Who are your parents? Who breathed you into this world? And the film is respected for that, regardless of its imperfection. So for me, art is never supposed to be at the mercy of politics. Never. It never worked in Russia, China, America, anywhere. It should be free. When you are creative, when you tell a story, when you are working on a canvas, be free from your political struggle. It's good to struggle. I don't discourage my students to not to study politics. I say no, so you don't get to be used. But you don't get this gift, the artistic gift. You don't submit it or put it under the political dogma. Then it's no more art. And the same thing applies to race issue. Many people say, one filmmaker who I admire says, you're so revolutionary, your films are so. I said, my brother, I just tell a story. You don't have to classify, but I wish I could make revolutionary films. No, you're telling powerful stories that I've never seen before. So people have a problem, These categories are dangerous for artists. The job of the storyteller is to tell a story without appraising it by political graphic paradigm. Leave it, be at peace, to sing its own song and not be burdened about, Black people's problem politically is so enormous, you don't burden every poetry on it. You'll never make a story about the human Black people. The mother would just, holding her grandmother's hand across the street. What's political about that? But it's the most humanist thing that you could captivate. So the human story is more important. That should be for me, what I aspire is in the story, not my political dogma being imposed on it. In fact, I'm the most traitor person. What I believed yesterday, I don't believe it today. I've grown up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1 week. I'm 1 week older, why would I be that dogmatic there?
There's no more to say.
Is that it? Okay, you're sorry, but watch.
I didn't see the film today, so I kind of missed most of the conversation, but I have 2 things I would like to hear about. One from Haile, one from Araba. I've always seen you at Temple. I used to work at the cafe, I don't know if you remember, but to me it was like, that's the person on Haile's movie, but then there was nothing that say that I'm an actor around you. And then this is a very naive and vain question, but I'm gonna be honest and ask it. For you to be part of Haile's movie and take it as your healing journey, and then how is your relationship with the art of acting and being around camera, being around that? Like, how was it like? Was it like a visit, or you continued in that journey of like expressing yourself through that? Like, and how was it even kind of being away from the light or being closer to it? Like, I kind of want to understand your journey as a person who kind of was part of this movie. And then with Teza's, I cannot even say what I feel about it. It's part of who I am at this point. One thing I would like to know more about is the Zafu, like the scene in the tree where you talk about the children of dragons. I always want to know about like why you always add like the origin, the story of origin, and who become the mythology. Like I want to know more about that aspect of Teza.
You came late, didn't you? We're not gonna talk about that. Go ahead, Araba.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
I ain't going in there
I
again.
think I can
I spent my
sorry.
heart over it. I'm tired. Go ahead, Araba.
Yeah, thank you for your question. Where do I start? So those of you who heard it already, I might be repeating myself in some point, so please bear with me. Because I'm not an actress, and I was actually quite dogmatic, I think, when I
Politically?
yes,
Well, that's another story.
yeah, I think I was quite dogmatic in when I started. So I looked at the role from that perspective, and actually when I heard myself first, I think that was when the film was just in the cutting room, and I think you let me hear my voice. I don't know if you remember that, but I was convinced that I destroyed your film. I was convinced, and I was like, okay, it can still be cut out, and somebody else can. I was really convinced of that. I don't know if I think I told you that too.
No, you didn't.
I didn't. Okay.
I would not cut it, you know.
But I was really committed. So there were a lot of insecurities. So it took me a very long time to understand the concept of imperfection, the concept of this also being part of the story, my layers, my imperfections, my accents, that it was not about something perfect, but it was really about telling the stories, and that all what I brought in, or what we all brought in, were our stories that were part of also the process. So that took me a very long time. It took me a very long time to really, for it to sink in. And like I said, I really felt Cassandra. I couldn't have acted her if I couldn't have connected with her, because I'm not an actress. And I also said before that she also allowed me to have a space for my anger as well, in ways like she was more courageous than me in many situations. So I really grew as well with that. And I remember the film was also shown in Accra at the Goethe Institute, and my father was there, and I was really nervous and a bit scared how he would react to the scene when I said, you can't just happily make children and just leave. And it's a complex story, but at the end of the day, my father did return to the motherland. So I was really nervous how the reaction would be. Just to give you an example, like my approach was never that of an actress. Even when I was in screenings, and I remember there was one film screening where some people laughed at the scene when Gabi and Tesfaye say that, they're pregnant, and my look is really, my eyes, my look is really, and there were people who laughed because, like she's jealous and haha. And because I'm not an actress, I was hurting my feelings. I was like, this is not funny. This is not funny because I really felt with it. So I can only say that it really had allowed me a space I didn't give myself before. I would say because I came from quite a dogmatic perspective as I'm an activist, you're part of the problem or part of the solution. So this really broadened my horizon in ways that are still unfolding. And yeah, for me as on my journey as recovering storyteller.
And by the way, in the I know earlier, but in the 1970s, my America is late 60s, 1970. And African students don't hang out with black people, nowhere. And in fact, I stole that scene you're talking about from Shirikiana and her sister. They were into their Pan-African mood, and they heard about African Party. And they went from Detroit they drove for hours to go, I think, far, to go dance with African brothers. And the Africans kept dancing only with the white women. And so it could be a stolen idea from Shirikiana and her, the story she told me. But it's a very serious matter. Even in Germany, all my friends are around the white world. They do not even, they are Ethiopian, for example, many Ghanaians too, but, speaking about, I'm Ethiopian. I find many Ethiopian intellectuals who are studying, but for them, the child that has come about in their social life is not a serious matter. And that used to be an issue for me.
The reason why I had asked that question too is because I remember I had a Chinese coworker, and I don't know how the subject came up about dating white women because you see a lot of white and Asian people, and he said quite simply to me, "How is she going to talk to my mother?" He's making a conscious decision, like, I'm not going to do that. How is she going to talk to my mother? So culturally within him, it was important to him that his wife or his partner can communicate with his mother, his children, the whole family, right? And then I had another experience. I had these African cousins, they were Nigerian, very aggressive, chasing me around campus. And one time he told me a story that he would ask me where I was from, because if I was American, he would not have been talking to me, right? And he said to me, well, he had this idea in his head that African American women were bad and were not good because he had a bad experience with one robbing him or something like that when he lived with her. I never forgot the story. And then he raised up white women for not doing that, that they were better than us. And I said, what are you talking about? Why would you, for one bad apple doesn't spoil the whole bunch. Why would you raise them up like that? And for that reason, I just, I never wanted to go out with him anyway. But the fact of the matter is that he left an impression to me that we had no value to him, in that sense. And I think a lot of times, you might hear that, oh, it's easier, white women are easier because black women are difficult on this kind of way. But we always have to fight for our humanity in those relationships to say, I have a voice, and my voice, whether it's with a brother or not, is important, and not specifically so you can see us, but to acknowledge the fact that, you know what, we're going through the same thing, So.
Yeah, but I think here we have to really be careful. To me, I think that, you know, the points we're talking about, the stereotype is one thing. The, you know, when you have self-hatred, that's one thing. When you have very mentally deranged desire of a certain group only, that's a problem. But human beings could also cross tracks and meet and create a life and family. But for me, I'm more in the film. Also, my interest is really the children left, even within, let's say there's an Ethiopian guy I know who left a daughter in California and went for the revolution. And so, to me, I think if you are for social change, if you want for revolution, if you believe in revolution, then this is the wrong foot to start with. Leaving a child in a very, to be a missing father or a missing mother, whatever, is wrong for me. And that's really because the child is hurt. Children are hurt. So my concentration here in the film story is really the kids that are hurt because of these situations. And I don't want it to go be outside that, but any other last few questions, two or one last question? Go ahead, the brother there.
I just wanted to make the observation as well, because it said so many times today that you are not an actor, and I don't know, I guess I would like to respectfully disagree, because as an actor, well, I guess the term actor is very Eurocentric, so maybe I'll switch that to storytelling, because they are synonymous, but I didn't start off in theater or acting school. I'm very new to the academic space, and what qualifies people a lot of times to call themselves an actor is that training. But I found, for me personally, actors exist and storytellers exist in a multitude of ways. Very many people will have that calling. Some of them do movies, and some of them are in some of them do podcasts, and some of them are just people that you meet at I don't know, this is one guy I talk to every time I go to Chipotle. He's a great actor. He's got so much point of view and perspective on things. And I don't know, I just wanted to, I remember I really appreciated your characterization, as you said earlier, of the character. And I think that you definitely have that storytelling gift. So I don't know, I wanted to say that. And also, as a Cameroonian, someone of Cameroon, I'm Cameroonian American, but I'm also of Nigerian descent because how the borders are. And so with that identity, I guess I wanted to share that for me, this film was so universal that although I'm not necessarily, I'm not Ethiopian, but so many of the themes and so many of the experiences I can also speak to, I can also relate with. And I don't know, I guess I wanted to ask or hear a bit about, when people come to America, many of our parents come to America, many of our ancestors were brought to America, either voluntarily or involuntarily, and then they are integrated into this culture, what exists here in America. I'm wondering, when we consume and we interact with, and what you said earlier, Mr. Gerima, the diet of America, it changes you, and then you become a new thing. Because I'm not Cameroonian fully, I'm not American fully. I don't fully identify with either culture. I'm somewhere in between, and there are things that I grew up with, and stories and media and things that I grew up consuming that may not necessarily all the way reflect, or people like me don't exist in them. So I'm wondering, how do you find that middle ground, or how can you speak to that experience and how one could find? Because at one end that could be oh, I reject everything of American descent, any of what exists in my paradigm that comes from this place or is of this place, I reject, and that removes part of what is in my origin story, part of what makes me. And on the other end, I could be like, okay, I wouldn't want to project anything from my Cameroonian ancestry and what encompasses me there. So I guess from your perspective of someone who came to America but also had a stronger foundational knowledge of Ethiopia, your homeland, us who may not have that experience directly with the homeland or with the culture or with the music or with people, but would like to find that balance. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, but don't, the issue is whatever it is, don't make it a hang-up of superiority complex or inferiority complex. Neither is good. To me, accepting what you feel inside is fundamental. No one can from outside could interject it or inject you with it. The other part of it is a false agony is there is no American culture. I know many Ethiopians who are Americo-Ethiopians, but to me it's like French fries, it's not American. It's a whole BS going on Americanism. If you talk about America as a synthesis of many elements that have come into it, is predominantly African-centered activity by jazz, if you go, by music, if you go, by, there's Africa pulsating. Like in Brazil, Africa refused to die, even in the food. Even in the food, Africa exists in the food. Africa exists in the Catholic Church that it was first banished by and sold into slavery. The Pope used to bless slave ships. But if you go to Brazil, Catholic is African-centered. The church is infiltrated by this, not the revolutionaries like Hugh Newton going in the Catholic Church. Africa infiltrates. It's a very strong culture. It infiltrates. In America, I think we Africans who come from Africa, our biggest problem is that we think we're free from being psychologically injured. We feel, I'm from Africa, therefore I'm not psychological basket case. We are, especially the ones who falsely have gone through so much colonialism and feel unscathed is a sick person. Unscathed. 400 years longer than slavery is colonialism in Africa. It has disfigured us locally more. Although more books have written in the diaspora about mental issues of racism. African Americans or African Brazilians, Caribbeans, they've been writing about it, saying, why do we hate ourselves? What do we have a problem? What is wrong with my lips, my nose, my hair? This is the African diaspora struggle. Africans, they're bleaching their face, to be white in Ghana and still don't think they're sick. They're not writing any book about it or any movie about it. So for me, I think Sankara said it best, to tell you the truth. I was in Harlem. Sankara came to visit America. In Harlem, Reagan was the time the president didn't want to see him, but Sankara didn't come to see him. He came from Cuba after a meeting into Harlem. And he said, my White House is Harlem, is his first sentence. And then that night in the hotel, he told his ministers, his ambassadors who were degenerates and completely neo-colonial mindsets, because they're the ones who in the end consumed him. He said to them, did you see tonight on the stage in Harlem, those black people cherish Africa. You saw them dance with African clothes, African drum. And he said, you know what? Because they know what it means to lose. We in Africa, he said, we quickly jump into guitar. We quickly got Western, so-called modernization. And he said, someday the culture, this is what he said, this African culture will disappear in Africa and we'll have to America to excavate it, to archaeologically excavate it. That's A woman who told me who was in this meeting blew me when she told me. I went to Harlem to just film him to shoot his Harlem event. I didn't go near any power base, anything, but it was the most impressive story. He said, did you see them? They are like, some of them are doctors, some of them are preachers, some of them are scientists. Look at them in their African garb dancing. And here, the minute we get degree, we can't even talk to our own people. I mean, it's an amazing metaphor. And it to me is the ships in the night. We Africans think we come here, African Americans longing for Africans, they look at us as novelty. And what we do is walk all over it, disrespect it, and not knowing they know something we don't know. About racism, they know. They had it before us. They wrote about it before us. They sang about it before us. And in Africa, we imitate the superficiality of African American. In South Africa, you know, it's like BET colony. And they think it's black and African. The BET colonization of South Africa and Nigeria and everywhere you go, BET colonizes. BET is not the Africans that I'm talking about. So for me, I think we have to know, especially those of us who immediately can trace Africa, it's not a bragging point, supremacist or inferiority complex. I did have inferiority complex because I felt America was the epitome of modern planet. And when I came, everything about me, my language, my mouth, my speaking tongue, because the teachers pointed out they're going to change how I speak, how I posture. They took my picture the first day in class was taking my posture, my sound, and promised me they'll change me. And all I thought about is this Caribbean woman said to me, why did you come to America? Aren't you the cradle of theater? Why do you come to America to study? I thought she was crazy. But more and more, I said, that woman is maybe right. They're morphing me into somebody else. And when I went to UCLA, I rebelled. I was escaping like an enslaved person from Chicago. So for me, I know the inferiority complex we have based on American empire implanted through media, through actors, etc. You don't know how much these black jokers we have in Hollywood influence Africa. In fashion, in makeup, some kind of nails that goes to spaceship, some kind of thing that extends from their eye going like this before you even see them. Is this a flying bird or a person? It's before us. Where does it come from? From the petty bourgeois black American culture. And so to me, we imitate that. We don't have no critical, we don't even say, that dance reminds me of my village. We don't say that. We try to do black American dance as if it didn't come from Africa. The seed idea of it came from Africa. There's no African manifestation in the diaspora without the seed having come from Africa, including jazz. When we study that, I think it's a different connection, expanding, embracing. And self, the first one is embracing self. A lot of Africans, we're quick to tell how, these black people are crazy. But we say, no, you're crazy too. See, let's see how crazy both of us are. You coming from the equator, okay? In my case, I am from under the equator. I come to Chicago into a snow. I'm crazy. Just that snow confrontation. I used to go to class and couldn't start class because my flesh goes into ice. You can poke and hear sound because I'm not from the snow planet. Now I have acclimated with clothes and everything, but to me, we are crazy coming from under the equator where the sun is into this place. And then who are we judging? People who have created the survival tools to give us that we can take from. So to me, those are the intersections. I hope we're ending here, so that it don't become into a church. Are you asking, that's over? Okay, well, one, I just want to say, I was very much interested in really, in people seeing what, Araba and me tried in Teza. And that is, not about Germany. I was trying to really show it comes here too. It's not only in Germany, just they are small in size and very at the mercy of a very powerful racist air. In Germany, the air hurts me. Before the people even gets you, the air hurts you. And the people are like frozen people. And they're jealous of warm people. When I was choosing for this camera, they tried to put a German cameraman for me. And I said, no, I want from the tropical place. I want somebody from, and then we work on a person from India who I knew was very good, but a film director himself couldn't make it to the schedule. Because I want somebody who understands warmer climate. And we settled finally for an Italian, but I wouldn't let no German, no Dutch, no from the ice world to film my film because it needed warm approach. Because as you saw the tone, the earth tone and the color we're achieving, you need the warmthness of the society or the village. Not, because sometimes we think Africans are poor. The environment is first, has to be comprehended. It's a very rich, energetic environment. And you don't want to lose that by getting the wrong, I don't know how I got there back again. But I'm saying, Araba, thank you, my sister. I was always grateful. The discussion, one thing I want to tell you is Araba had the character before I met her. Araba had the heart for that character, the human being, the sensitivity she has. The story she tells me later on that I know, has been part of what she used in the film. That she told me later on, even now when we met Sharik and we met her in Austria, she told us a story that would blow my mind. It is the story that Nanu just read that she was telling you. And so for me, you brought that. So to me, that's more wealth, than the title of it. And thank you, my sister. I'm always grateful. Nanu, she wants to hug you. Come here. She wants to hug me and hug you. You did so much in this. Every frame I see, you giving everything you have. Your magnetism is there.
I'm going to be really like me. We are family now.
We don't need to say. We are family. Yeah, Sherika, I know she's feeling bad. She's not here.
She's here.
She's here?
In spirit.
Oh, yeah.
It's still loud. You just took it right here.
I have to give
Nana was where now? She's disappeared.
I'm gonna find her
in the back. All right, guys, coming? Yes.
Can we do it? You know the camera.